Let me just share my slides first before I continue. Okay. All right, so before we begin, gusto ko po munang malaman, we can make this as informal of a discussion as possible so that we don't make things too formal. Time and again, I would ask you participants to interact and then share your thoughts. We can do that by using the chat box. So okay lang ba kung we practice using the chat box? So click the chat box, and then first I'd like to ask everyone kung anong nararamdaman mo sa ngayon. So if you have one word to describe how you're feeling right now, what would that be? So you can type in your answers on the chat box. Okay. So si Miss K, happy and calm. Okay, so happy, fine, just fine. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Dwight, positive, thank you. Medyo stress, me and Mark. Pagkatapos lang magsubit sa work, we're all doing work from home these days, no? Medyo nare-realize ko parang mas stressful pa pala yung work from home kaysa sa actual face-to-face work, no? Going to the office and working. Trying to be fine, si Maria Angelica. Hello. Joy, okay naman po. Thank you. Kimberly, fine. The sunshine, relaxed. That's good to hear. Arian, a little bit worried. See, that's okay, Arian. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share how they're feeling right now? I'm excited about the webinar. Thank you, Gracia. A bit anxious, but overall okay naman po. Okay, thank you. Shaina. Still holding on and trying to be productive. Hello. I guess all of us are having our own ways of coping, no? Some are trying to be productive, some are trying to distract themselves by accessing Netflix, right? Watching series, playing video games, so on. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, this is a webinar on remote psychological first aid. I think, I assume a bit, I think some of you here are familiar with psychological first aid already. It's just that we noticed that because of the COVID situation, right? We can't really do psychological first aid face-to-face because we are limited by the policies we have right now regarding the virus. So, syempre, we have social distancing, or actually the WHO calls it physical distancing na, no? Hindi pwedeng gumawa ng typical psychological first aid sessions because of the distance, and secondly, people are staying at home, and some groups are actually looking at the idea na how about let's do psychological first aid while at home. Gawa tayo ng PFA by reaching out to people through video calls or telephone calls or mobile phone calls. That way we could reach more people without having to go out. You know, that's a very admirable idea. And I see a lot of groups nowadays that trying to do it. They try to reach out. I see a lot of social workers also for social media saying they're open for people to receive calls. They can receive calls and then process their experiences. So maraming tulong ang naibibigay. And you know what? Personally, I'm very happy because there are a lot of people who are very willingly would like to share their time and resources, and of course their efforts in trying to help others. So we opened this webinar for those who are affiliated with church organizations or non-government organizations or other civic groups who are planning to conduct or to give psychological first aid services to people. So if it's all right with you guys, can you please type on the chat box kung anong klaseng group you are affiliated with. You can type in either church-based or NGO or any other civic organization. So, saan nyo balak gamitin itong knowledge ng kukuha ngayong hapon? Okay, thank you, Gwen. So Gwen is from an NGO. I'm asking the question because it's important for us also to bring some sort of contextualization, right? And try to match your needs with what we're about to discuss. Okay. So my NGO, volunteer group, school, LGU, academe, school setting, my corporate and academe. That's nice. Guidance counselors, okay, well, advocacy works. Thank you. For the students of UB, okay, that's a very good gesture. Thank you so much. And church, right? I have my own church also in Malate. It's also one of the needs right now, no? Na the church also would give some form of intervention or response to people, the parishioners. So this is a very good gesture of you. Okay, so also for those who are redundant because of recession. Okay, volunteer. Okay, thank you guys. So it's very nice that you shared kung saan kayo galing at para saan ito gagamitin na knowledge na makukuha niyo sa webinar na to. I hope that we would be able to align your expectations with the knowledge that I would be providing to you this afternoon. Okay. Young people of church or NGO and volunteer also. Thank you, Shane. So I gave a webinar previously on psychological self-care. This was hosted by Youth for Christ. Pero ito naman sa Mindanao, particularly sa Tanaw del Norte. So it was a very good experience for all of us. Working on your thesis, see? Maria Angelica, disaster-related. Okay. Thank you very much. So gagamit nito sa thesis. Okay. I actually have some mentees in the LSU who are also focusing on disasters for their thesis. I guess lahat tayo ng mga estudyante medyo hirap na yun, no? Lalo na pag thesis na tayo or practical. Medyo na-pause lahat ng activities natin. But I do hope that you're getting by quite fine. Okay. So thank you very much for sharing. Let's move on now. Right. Before we proceed with discussing the content for remote psychological first aid, I'd like to give this this quiz. Don't worry, you will not be graded. Wala naman bagsak dito or hindi naman kayo palalapasin ng webinar kung mali sagot nyo. No? But this is just a good way to check ourselves kung ano yung alam natin so far about psychological first aid. So, makikita nyo sa screen nyo, sa taas na part, diba, may mute, stop video, secure, participants, share screen, something like that. Yung makikita ko dyan na annotate. So, we will use that tool for this particular activity. So, later on, makakakita kayo sa screen ng questions about psychological first aid. These are just very true or false questions. You can use your annotate button. Tapos, you will see, you can click it now actually. Yung makikita kayo dyan ng mga icons like X or check or whatever icons, right? Yes or no button, okay. Pero you can, siguro you can use the X, yung kulay-pula. That way you'd be able to answer the quiz while being anonymous. So I'll be showing some true or false questions, and then all you have to do is to click on the space where it says true or where it says false. Okay, ready? Okay, let's start. So this is the first question. So first, psychological first aid or PFA is meant to be delivered only by mental health professionals. True or false? So don't worry, hindi kayo makikita, hindi malalaman kung kaninong sagot to. Diba when you click annotate there, you can use stamp. Yeah. You may check a stamp. So there's an X, my arrow, my check, my heart, my star. Okay. So you can use that. Yeah. So others have started answering. Thank you. Go ahead. Feel free. I don't see who's answering. Don't worry. So my true, my false. All right. Any more answers? Gusto niya talaga malaking check, no? Okay. That's just fine. All right. Okay. Sige, you can take note of your answers. Then later on, while we're discussing, no, I'm not going to share with you the right answers to these questions. You can just find out for yourselves while we are discussing. But of course, it's also for me to gauge how you are in terms of your knowledge about psychological first aid. Next slide. Um, for our host, I don't know if I can clear everything, but in your case, you can clear all the annotations right now. Okay. Thank you so much. I'll move on to the next slide. Next. So by nature, psychological first aid is non-intrusive and practical. True or false? So parang mas marami. True. All right. Thank you so much for your answers. Okay. Meron ba? Okay. Ayan. Next question. An important aspect of PFA is that it must protect people from further harm. True or false? Okay, so unanimous tayo dun, no? For number 3. Meron pa sasagot? All right, thank you so much. Let's proceed to the next one. Everyone who experiences a crisis will need or want psychological first aid. So true or false? So may konting division. Medyo divided yung house niya, no? So everyone who experiences a crisis will need or want psychological first aid. All right, thank you for your answers. Let's move on to the next one. Again, next. Safety protocols are observed in the conduct of PFA. True or false? Okay, I guess we're united in that answer. No? Safety protocols really are observed in the conduct of psychological first aid. Thank you. Let's proceed to the next one. Most people recover well over time, especially when their basic needs are met. So is it true or false? Okay, so unanimous din tayo dun, no? Most people will recover over time. All right, thank you. Next. Those people with existing experience of distress do not need urgent attention. So is that true or false? So false ang ating sagot dito sa item na to. Alright, medyo unanimous tayo. Thank you. Let's proceed to the next item. Okay, number 8. In providing PFA, we do not pressure people to talk. Okay, so parang naging anonymous yung mga sagot natin ngayon, no? Thank you so much. Let's proceed to the next item. So number 9, listening to an important skill. Listening is an important skill in providing PFA. Okay, so we all agree that listening is an important skill in providing PFA. Thank you so much. Let's proceed to the very last item before we start discussing. Okay, so the last one is PFA is helping people to help themselves to regain control of their situation. Is this true or false? Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for answering the short quiz. You know, based on your answers, parang most of you are very much familiar with how to do psychological first aid already, right? So kung wala lang sanang physical distancing, no, I'm sure you'd be very effective facilitators of psychological first aid in your organization. So thank you for your answers. Let's proceed. Okay, let's clear applications now. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that all of you have some idea already of what psychological first aid is. Before we start discussing the remote part of psychological first aid, this is just a short reminder of what PFA is all about. So the first thing that we need to understand about PFA is that psychological first aid, it's a method of helping people in distress so that they feel calm and supported to cope better with their challenges. So it's also a way of assisting someone to manage their situation and then make informed decisions. Because pag ang tao ay distressed, right? Very anxious, very psychologically distressed, it's really difficult to make any informed decisions. And of course, PFA is all about demonstrating care and empathy. It's telling people that, you know, I'm here to listen. It's not really advice giving, no? Kasi even in the professions, even in the psychology profession, guidance counseling profession, we don't really give advice, but it's really more of empathizing with the situation of people. It's paying attention to their own reactions towards stress, actively listening to what they're saying, what are their needs, you know, and making them feel that, yes, I'm here, I understand what you are going through. You don't even need to share your own personal experiences about things. But it's about letting them know that someone is listening, someone is there for them, and that someone is actually very capable of linking them with people who would be able to address their other needs. So aside from these, PFA is also practical assistance, okay, such as problem solving, help to access basic needs, or refer to further options for assistance. You know, everybody knows PFA is one way uh, to address people's psychological needs. Yeah. Especially in our home province, ito kang sa Bicol, sa Albay, we are very much exposed to different forms of natural disasters. May volcan, may dagat, so may storm surges, right? They're always exposed to storms, may earthquakes pa paminsan-minsan. So they're very familiar with psychological first aid. But what they know about PFA is basically to address the mental health needs of people. What they do not know most of the time is that it's also about giving practical assistance. Kaya nga mahirap gumawa ng remote PFA kasi when you do actual PFA, usually you will have to link them, right? Kailangan mo silang dalhin sa mga tao na mas makakatulong sa kanila. And the needs are not necessarily psychological in nature, but physiological, like food, right? Shelter, all the basic things that you need to survive, right? Especially for immediate disasters like volcanic eruption. If you remember the Taal crisis we had earlier this year, no? Or nung nakaraan. So it's not just about mental health, it's overall health issues kasama dyan, and linking them to the proper people. So PFA helps normalize worry and other emotions. Normalize, when we say normalize, it's not really to make worry or anxiety disappear. No? Kasi in a crisis like this, I think some of you have already attended webinars also on self-care, right? And then how to respond to stress. Actually, with Childfam-Possibilities, we have a series of webinars, no? And then in those webinars, we be able to understand the common stress reactions. And it's perfect. When we say normal, it's perfectly fine that you're feeling that way because we are in an abnormal situation. But what we do with PFA is to promote, not just to tell them that it's okay, that that's what you're feeling right now, it's normal because of the situation, but to also tell them that there are ways for us to effectively cope with the stress that we are feeling, to cope with the anxiety, to cope with the anger that we are feeling, right? So it's to make them not just feel calm, but to make them more aware about their situation and to offer a glimpse of hope by helping them solve their problems, not necessarily solving their problems for them, no, but helping them solve their problems on their own, right? So why is PFA needed by some people? I mentioned in the slide that it's needed by some people. This is because not everyone needs to be given psychological first aid. The very fascinating thing, about human beings, especially with our brains, kanya-kanya kasi tayo ng level of resilience with different stressful situations. Lahat naman talaga ng tao nakakaranas ng stress. It's just that our thresholds for stress may tend to vary depending on the situation, right? And it tends to depend on a lot of factors like our environment, pwede rin yung genetics natin, pwede rin yung support system natin. If you're familiar with what we call the biopsychosocial model, right? Well-being is a combination of biological factors, psychological factors, and social factors. So yung way natin ng pag-cope sa mga bagay-bagay, it's also a combination of all of these factors. So we can't really say that there's the best way of coping, but people cope in different ways depending on how these factors have an effect on that person. So I guess what I'm trying to say is some people, even if they experience a very distressing situation, diba? Like a volcanic eruption or tsunami or storms, it seems like they're not really totally affected by the situation. Hindi sila distressed. Or syempre, stressed pa rin sila, pero hindi sila distressed. They're not exhibiting symptoms of anger, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress. It's likely that they are more resilient and they are able, or they are more able in coping with the situation than other people. May mga tao lang talaga na can easily be overwhelmed by the stress of the situation. So these are the kind of people that we need to give PFA to. I'm not saying that these people are weak, diba? Hindi naman so weak sila. It's just that we naturally have our own different thresholds hanggang saan yung kaya i-take for each abnormal situation. Okay. So there are factors. So we don't really need to discuss all the factors right now. Pero yun ang sinasabi ko na we don't give PFA to everybody. So people who need, it's important to give PFA to these people because significant changes in the environment tend to have an impact, a large impact on mental and physical health. And of course, we're social beings. Lalo na ngayon, we can't really talk to people personally, right? Our movements right now are very limited. Nakapunta ka lang sa grocery. When you buy essential things, that's the only time you can go out. But you are stuck at home, right? And we as human beings, we tend to look for social interactions. We tend to seek talking to people, interacting with them. So, things like this, Zoom, Google Meet, or any other platform, they're all very useful in maintaining that social interaction. So imagine pag wala yun, diba? Colloquialism, babaliw talaga tayo, diba? So it's vital for human beings. So, some people, even though they have a lot of people in their social networks, they have friends, families, loved ones, minsan mahirap maghanap na makakausap, especially to talk your mental health, right? Some people may may find it because they think it's a sign of weakness. They do not share what they're experiencing with their loved ones. So it tends to pile up inside. That's where we come in. We can help them um, process those experiences. Even if we do not give psychotherapy because PFA is not psychotherapy. Even if we don't give therapy, just giving them the opportunity to speak what's on their minds and on their hearts is very helpful. Okay. So aside from fear and anxiety, this is something that I consider very serious. Um, in a situation like this, it's not just about psychological distress that you need to look out for, that you need to watch out for. It's also other issues, other social issues that can be attributed to the pandemic. That includes child abuse, right? That includes domestic violence, kasama na dyan yung intimate partner violence, right? And of course, yung substance use. Imagine families, no, na dati nang abusive yung environment nila. Tapos na-quarantine pa. So they're stuck inside the house with that child abuse or that domestic violence happening. So you can only imagine what they are experiencing right now, right? Kasama na din dyan yung substance use. In social media, a lot of people are expressing their opinions about may balita ka sa social media before na, or I think that was yesterday na, pagkatapos niya makuha yung SAP niya, right, yung amelioration from the SWD, pinambili niya ng shabu yung nakuha niyang pera. People have expressed their anger towards that person. But substance use is actually one of the ways people cope in stressful situations like the COVID pandemic. Marami lang talaga ng iba't ibang klase ng coping. Some people cope by listening to music. Some people cope by watching series, right? Making TikTok videos. That's pretty common nowadays. So may healthy ways of coping. Meron din naman unhealthy ways of coping, like making use of substances. Hindi lang yung drugs, kasi medyo red flag sa atin ng drugs, diba? But there are common substances. Hindi natin napapansin, can also be maladapted, such as smoking, alcohol, gambling, right? Yung paglalagay ng tupada sa barangay. These are, we may think that this is irresponsibility. We may think that it's selfishness, but that phenomenon, and that is also the fact that it's a way for other people to actually cope and try to distract themselves from the situation that we are in right now. So equipping them with the right kind of coping mechanisms, it's also one of the things that we need to do as people who give PFA. Okay. Right, so who can benefit from PFA? Basically, halos tayong lahat kasi tayong lahat nagpa-quarantine. So self-quarantine persons in homes, kasama na dyan yung hotels or appointed facilities, right? This can be benefited by the general population who may call to seek information and support. Nga lang, this is something new. Remote PFA is something new because basically we are asking people to call us so that we can give the appropriate support, right? Pero alam niyo naman tayo mga Pinoy, mababa talaga yung help-seeking natin, help-seeking behaviors natin, mababa talaga. I was talking with DOH here in Bicol region a few weeks ago, and kasi nag-start din sila ng hotline, right, for mental health issues. And unfortunately, walang tumatawag. And I guess that's pretty much what the literature says about us, na mababa talaga yung help seeking natin. But if we can make this work, na meron talagang tumatawag sa atin, then that would be great, right? So it can be for the general population. And of course, it can also be for health workers, social welfare responders, providing care and treatment to patients, particularly mga frontliners natin. This would be very helpful. In one province, some of my colleagues in Naga City, for example, they are now people to render group psychosocial processing sa mga nurses and then doctors of the hospitals, because they really badly need it. Kailangan na kailangan talaga ng support nila right now. Kasi ang dami nilang experiences na nagdadala sa kanilang stress. You know, they can't really relate it to other people. So this is just a glimpse of what's happening right now. Some universities are also opening their doors to processing the experiences of frontliners, like in De La Salle University, meron services doon, and also with the University of Santo Tomas. So we can do the same kind of hotline, right? The same kind of EFA na we can help the frontliners access other forms of help. Okay, and of course, you know, people have recovered from COVID-19, so we can have them. We can help them through psychological first aid. The thing about those who have recovered from COVID-19, akala natin daw recovered sila, okay sila. Hindi eh, kasi they also tend to experience discrimination, stigmatization because they have been infected, right? Dagdag pa dyan yung isolation because when they were treated, talaga nasa bahay sila sa isang room or nasa government facility sila na walang ibang kapamilya, walang friends, only nurses tsaka doctors. So they also need psychological first aid. Right, families and friends of disease, you know, right now, you know, it's a very, very difficult time to grieve. I have students also na sasabi sa akin na namatay sila ng kapamilya. Parang it's also very difficult for them to process it because they can't really grieve because of the protocols that are being imposed by the government on how to really handle cases like this. Lalo na yung mga COVID patients na namatay, yung mga kapamilya nila, mahihirapan sila mag-process ng grief na yun kasi na lang nila makita yung kapamilya nila. Kasi di ba may protocol tayo na kailangan i-cremate yung namatay after once nag-expire yung patient, kailangan i-cremate agad. So you can only imagine how families must be feeling right now. Caregivers with children at homes due to closure of schools. Yung mga bata initially impressed sila kasi walang pasok, no? Pero sometimes it can take a toll on them din. Pero caregivers also need some form of psychological support when things get really stressful. It's quite funny, pwede medyo nakakatawa din isipin, lalo na pag browse ka sa Facebook na may mga memes ka makikita na yung mga parents na nahihirapan sila kung paano nila i-handle yung mga anak nila, and then hinahanap nila yung mga teachers, mga bata ng bis na namin. Ayun. But you know, they're also susceptible to stress. Older adults and other groups who may find themselves isolated and appreciate that daily well-being and care. So, but you know, when you really start this kind of service, then people call you. Some of them pwedeng hindi naman talaga psychologically distressed, pero baka naghahanap lang sila ng information, right? Baka confused lang sila kung sino pwedeng puntahan, sino yung pwedeng tanungin, baka may concern sila sa barangay nila na hindi nila alam kung paano ipaparating, lalo na kung nasa bahay lang sila. Now, if you're operating this at a very local level, kasama sa magiging responsibilities natin, dapat alam natin lahat ng tao, kilala dapat natin lahat ng tao na dapat puntahan ng mga constituents or ng mga residents. Dapat alam natin yung contact number sila, how to reach them. So it's one of the things that we do as PFA helpers. Other groups to previous vulnerabilities such as mental health or substance abuse problems that need support. Alam ko, hindi yung tanong kanina sa quiz natin, no? Kailangan ba ng urgent attention ng mga tao na merong previous experiences of psychological distress? But you know, the answer to that question is really yes. You should be able to provide them with immediate attention, especially if they have a history of psychological distress. Lalo-lalo na yung mga tao na merong history of anxiety, merong history of depression, merong history of abuse, merong history of substance use. They all must be given immediate attention. Most likely when we give them PFA right after, we really need to refer them to someone who can help them even more. Okay, now for those who have already attended trainings in psychological first aid, this is quite common, but I would like to share this with you anyway. Hindi naman ito masyadong malaliman na discussion, but I hope it's still comprehensive enough for everybody to understand. So there are three principles in psychological first aid. You have your look, you have your listen, and then you have your link. When we say look, it refers to how to access the current situation, who seeks support. We must be able to find out what are the information related to risks. And then what are the immediate needs of the affected, and then expected emotional reactions. Hindi tayo pwedeng mag-start ng PFA service without understanding all of these. Ano ba yung current situation? Ano ba yung, you need to do some form of research also kung ano yung nararamdaman ng mga tao sa kasalukuyan. It's very easy to just say, kailangan nito ng counseling, kailangan nito ng attention ng barangay. It's very easy to just say what people need, but we always have to be very careful in really finding out what are the needs of the people in the community. So knowing the current situation is very vital in terms of what kind of help we are going to refer to them, right? We also need to be very particular about who seeks support. PFA can be done to adults, pwede rin to children, iba-iba. So knowing kung para kanino talaga yung ibibigay yung support ninyo is also very helpful in the kind of service that you will be giving. May ibang training din kasi for PFA for children, may iba din na training for PFA for adults. Itong binibigay kong webinar sa inyo right now, generally, it's for adults. And I can't give you any information about how to do it with children because it's much more complicated than that. It will include other ethical issues such as consent, right? Seeking permission, such as permission of parents, so on and so forth. So, so this is basically for adults. And then, ano ba yung needs ng affected? Is it really mental health needs? Kasi baka gumawa tayo ng PFA service natin, naghanap tayo ng volunteers, tapos lahat ng briefing natin sa kanila, orientation natin sa kanila ay puro how to address anxiety, how to address depression, how to address anger. Pero nakakaligtaan natin na ibang needs sila, like physical needs, physiological needs. They need to be informed of what's happening. Maybe they need information that's credible because puro fake news na nakikita nila sa social media. Maybe they need a way to reach the barangay captain or the LGU. So maybe those are the things that they need. Maybe they don't really need immediate mental health attention, diba? So knowing what these needs are is important. And of course, to also know what you're expecting when you receive a phone call or when you receive a video call. Kasama na dyan yung ano kaya yung mga possible emotional reactions na pwedeng makita natin sa caller natin. For those who have call center experience, I have the utmost respect for call center agents. I was a call center agent then back in 2014 when I was still finishing my master's degree. Sobrang mataas sa tinatawag natin na emotional labor ang pagiging call center agents. So, if you're gonna receive calls, there's always that expectation. Some people will be irate. Some people will be angry. And most of the time, they're not really angry at you. But if you don't give them the right kind of response, eventually they will get angry at you. So, setting this particular expectation, especially for a platform like this, hindi naman talaga kayo magkakaroon ng usap, it's very important that you know that they can be angry. They can be irate. Kasi pag nagkulat tayo, right? Pag nagulat tayo ng galit nila, mahihirapan din tayo gumawa ng mga desisyon kung paano tayo magre-respond sa kanila at magbigay sa kanila ng tulong. Madali rin kasi, di ba, paggalit yung kausap natin, at kung madali tayong magalit, instead of giving them the right kind of help they need, napablind tayo sa galit na nararamdaman din natin or pagkainis para sa kanila. So we end up not giving them the kind of help that they need, right? So being very conscious about expected emotional reactions is important. For listen, this refers to how to begin the conversation. But of course, in this scenario, sila yung tatawag. But it's gonna really be up to you. It's gonna be up to you to begin the conversation. How are you going to introduce yourself as the helper? It's also about paying attention and really making use of active listening skills. I think I don't know if I should discuss more about active listening. Kasi alam ko na guidance counselors kayo, may experience na kayo, responders na rin kayo with your own respective schools and then church and government organizations. But maybe we can discuss something more about that a bit, no, mamaya. So actively listening and then accept feelings. Mahirap kasi pag sinabing galit siya, tapos sasabihin natin, hindi, huwag ka magalit. Or sasabihin tayo ng caller natin na nalulungkot ako. Tapos sasabihin natin na, hindi, huwag ka dapat malungkot, dapat hindi ka nalulungkot. It becomes a very cringy situation if we tell them na dapat din namin yung feelings. So it means accepting feelings. Calming someone in distress, okay, it's part of listening, right? Giving the right kind of instructions. Ito kasi yung mahirap pag remote psychological first aid kasi kausap mo. If you give instructions, let's say, magbibigay ka ng mindfulness intervention or magpapa-breathing exercise ka, nandyan ka lang sa phone, tapos bigay mo ng instruction kapag ginagawa na ba ito or what. We don't know. So, having the right way of calming someone in distress through phone, it can be a different skill set in itself. No. So ask about needs and concerns. There is the right kind of, or the right way of asking questions. So we don't just ask questions. There's also a good way of asking them to make sure that we elicit the right kind of response. And finally, listening means helping find solutions to needs and problems. Baka isipin natin, sir, so ibig sabihin, bibigyan natin sila ng solutions. Not necessarily. Remember, we are still in the listening mode. It's really more about how we are going to help them fix their own problem. Sila din yung magsosolve nun. Tayo para facilitate lang natin yung mga sinasabi nila and help them organize their thoughts so that they could find solutions to their own problems. Okay? So last one is link. So linking, alam nyo kadalasan, pagdating sa psychological first aid, ito yung pinaka nakakalimutan sa lahat. Lalo na pag may mga natural disasters. Remember Yolanda back in 2013, may mga tao na pumunta, tapos nagpakwento sa mga tao po yung naranasan nila. Tapos magkwento, iniwan. So, pagkatapos, kasi tapos na processing, iniwan nila. What they didn't know was that people were left re-traumatized with what happened. Kasi kwento sila ng kwento, wala naman nangyari sa kanila, kwento lang sila ng kwento. In a way, retelling and retelling can be a part of the process for healing. Pero kasi kung hindi naman napoproseso, hindi napo-follow up, that can be very dangerous as well. Instead of helping them move on, nagre-recur yung experience all the time because we don't link them to the right kind of help. So the last phase of psychological first aid is really to access and letting them access information. Okay, sorry. So medyo mabilis daw yung. Okay. So with linking, you must be able to link people to the right kind of help that they need. So kung magsa-set up ka ng psychological first aid service, dapat prepared ka ng lahat ng materials na kakailanganin nyo ibigay sa mga tao. So we are not always at the receiving end of the process with psychological first aid. Dapat may maibibigay din tayo. And the right kind of information will, imagine, that if you give them false information, they will be using that as basis in making their own decisions. But so you can imagine that the decisions they'll be making will end up disastrous. So giving them the right kind of information will become good basis for making decisions as well. And you know, information is very important. Sometimes it can get difficult to really decipher, to really discern kung anong information na mali, tapos kung anong information na tama. And we all fall victim to that false information. Even credible people like your local executives can fall victims to fake news. So giving them the right kind of information is part of the process of linking so that they can make effective decisions. So linking also means connecting with loved ones and social support. Maybe the help that they need is not really to have their concerns answered by local executives. Baka yung problema nila hindi naman kayang sagutin uh, ng church. Baka yung problema nila mas kung paano sila makikipag-usap sa mga kapamilya nila sa bahay. Or baka ang problema nila ay kung paano sila mag-reach out sa ibang tao sa paligid nila. So, linking them also means strengthening the link that they have with networks that are already existing in their social networks. Linking also means tackling practical problems. So, when we say practical problems, di ba sabi ko kanina, pag PFA, hindi lang siya mental health issues. Practical problems din. Wala nang relief, wala na silang makain, hindi nila alam kung kanino pupunta, hindi nila alam kung kanino hihingi ng tulong. Meron akong anak na may sakit, for example, hindi ko alam kung sino nang tatawagin ko. I need access to healthcare, but I don't know who to contact. Meron din mga, it can also be a possibility na may tumawag na PUI or suspected person with COVID. Tapos, tatawag siya dahil hindi niya alam kung anong gagawin. Right? Hindi niya alam kung anong gagawin at natatakot siya na mag-speak up dahil baka ma-stigmatize siya ng mga tao sa kanyang community. So there can be cases like that as well. Okay. Also, so finally, pagdating sa linking, it's accessing services in other forms of help. Lagi ko itong sinasabi with classes pagdating sa mental health and psychosocial response na pag sinabi natin na PFA is not a one-stop-fits-all intervention. It may even be premature to call it an intervention on its own. Kasi pag sinabi natin psychological first aid, di ba first aid, ang analogy ko dyan parang ganito. Pag nahulog ka sa kahoy, di ba, nasugatan ka, ang gagawin ng nurse ay bibigyan ka ng paunang lunas. So first aid, bandages, yung napakahapdi na alcohol, right? So bibigyan ka ng pangunang lunas. But after that, kailangan kang i-refer sa hospital kasi baka pag nabag mo yung ulo mo, kailangan mo ng CT scan, kailangan mo ng MRI, something like that. We don't know. So, in a similar perspective, pagdating sa psychological first aid, it's just a first step. Okay, so that we would prevent the possibility that a person would experience more severe harm. Pangunang lunas lang din siya. Ang pinakatrabaho talaga ng first aid is to prevent the full impact of damage and then making sure that they be directed to the right kind of people who will give the most appropriate intervention. Kaya nga sinabi din natin, or actually, sasabihin ko pala ngayon, psychological first aid is something that can be done even if you are not a registered psychologist, even if you are not even if you are not a psychiatrist. Hindi mo kailangan maging mental health professional para magbigay ng psychological first aid. It's just that you need training to do that pa rin, di ba? So you can't just do it. You still need to attend the training for it. But you don't have to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist to do it. Okay. So, kasi ang magiging role natin dyan is, pag yung tao, kailangan nila ng tulong ng isang psychologist, we must be ready na meron tayong alam, psychologist, kung kanino natin dadalhin yung taong yan, or psychiatrist, or medical doctor, or social worker. Okay. So that's the process of linking. So ulitin ko, pag sinabi natin psychological first aid, it always talks about, one, yung look, right? Knowing what's happening around us, knowing what the need is, knowing what kind of people are going to be accessing your help, right? The second one is listen, making sure that you have a good understanding of how they are feeling, what they are experiencing, and accepting it without really giving advice or without really rejecting what they're feeling. And lastly, to link, to give them the right kind of service that they need to address their needs. Okay. So that's for psychological first aid. But take note that this webinar is about remote psychological first aid. So it's quite a bit complicated as compared to the typical or the standard psychological first aid. And here's why. And let me discuss the following points. So if you're gonna use this service, if you're gonna do this with your church, non-government organization, schools, there are many different ways to do it. So ways to prepare your support, pwede siyang maging outbound support. Kayo mismo yung tatawag sa kanila. I guess with the school setting, kung meron kayong database ng mga numbers ng students niyo, as long as they are at least 18 years old, you can call them. Or yung outbound support may not always be in the form of telephone calls or video conferences. Pwede rin yung outbound support in terms of private messages of encouragement, right? Supplying them with the right kind of situation, right kind of information. Some clinics, nagpapadala sila ng newsletters sa clients nila to supply them with the right kind of information they need. So, it's up to you to decide kung anong klaseng support ang gusto nyong ibigay. Pwede rin inbound support. Yun yung pinag-usapan natin kanina na potential people who seek help, they will be the ones calling you. So ito yung medyo alam natin lahat. May mga hotlines na pwedeng tumawag yung mga tao tapos you'll be giving them psychological support, right? So yun yung inbound support. Or you can set up a service that includes the combination of both outbound support and inbound. So that's on the structure of your organization. It depends on your workforce, right? It depends on the number of volunteers that you have. Okay, so you can either create your own system as an organization. So for larger organizations, kung kaya nyo naman gumawa ng ganitong system, you can set up your own guidelines. Right? You're very, very much welcome to do so. Or pwede kayo makipag-collaborate with call centers and local authorities. Kasi because this is remote PFA, it's definitely going to entail some form of equipment, like telephones, like software. Kasi for those who are not from, hindi alam masyado kung ano yung mundo ginagalawan ng call center agents. Yung type of interface na ginagamit nila sa call centers is may software na kailangan gamitin in order for them to manage phone calls. If we use the regular telephone lines, pag may tatawag, pag meron kayong kausap, it will appear to them na busy. So, mas maganda kung tatawag sila, they would be able to be put on hold so that they don't really give up on calling. So, mapupunta lang sila sa isang waiting list. So, those are just some of the initial considerations that you should also take into account if you're going to set up a remote psychological first aid service. So, if you know some people in the call center business na meron silang ini-implement na social responsibility programs sa company nila, then maybe that's something that you can talk about. Okay, so a part of the basic setup, no, so when working with an agency or organization, pag hindi ganitong sitwasyon na working from home, a command center is often a common venue. So may parang command center, andun lahat ng volunteers, they pick up the phone, they manage the phone calls, and that's where they work. But in this case, kadalasan work from home scenario tayo, no? Even the volunteers, ang mangyayari dyan, they will be manning their posts, they will be manning their duty schedules while in their homes. So this is also something to consider, particularly yung area where the calls will be received. Remember that because we are processing the experiences and the mental health conditions of the people we are helping, the ones who are calling us, hindi tayo basta-basta pwede mag-operate sa mga lugar na maraming disturbances or mga lugar na maraming tao ang makakarinig, because we also need to respect the privacy, the confidentiality, and the anonymity of our callers. So it's very important na kung work from home scenario tayo, masisecure natin yung conversations. Wala pa nakakarinig, you're in a secure place. Okay? Okay, so guidelines in planning support. So siguro by this time, no, na-realize natin na so hindi pala siya ganun kasimple na magpupul tayo ng volunteers, tapos hintay tayo ng tawag, we open it to everybody and then they can call. So, hindi siya ganun kadali. That's why it's very important to understand these guidelines. So the first is, you must be able to set up guidelines for the organizational structure of your group and supervision. Kasama na din dyan yung referral pathways. A good way to describe it is similar to the setup we have with call centers. Sa call centers, ang typical setup is meron kang mga tao na nag-receive ng calls, right? And for that particular group, may TL or may team leader. Tapos yung team leader, ang boss din nila yung manager. Or ang iba merong supervisors pa na higher than the team leaders. So, international guidelines dictate that if we're gonna do remote psychological first aid, we should be able to adopt the same structure na meron kang volunteers, the volunteers answer to a supervisor, and the supervisor answers to another supervisor. At the crudest sense, dapat may team of volunteers ka, tsaka isang supervisor. And the supervisor in this case can be the licensed psychologist, the licensed psychiatrist, or can consist of social workers. Yung talagang nag-handle ng cases. Okay. While PFA is something that you can do without being a mental health professional, pag ganito pag ganitong remote setting, we always need a supervisor. Not really to monitor us para i-evaluate tayo kung if we're doing a good job or hindi. Hindi naman. The purpose of having a supervisor with us is whenever we have a caller na kailangan ng mas higher level of help, then the supervisor is there to take the phone call for us. So, isa lang yun sa mga common scenarios that you can anticipate if you're going to provide this kind of service. You also need a set of guidelines for answering phone calls. So, hindi siya yung we pick up the phone and then you say, hello, sino po to? Ayun. So, hindi siya ganon na guidelines. But when we say guidelines for answering calls, we need to come up with scripts. Other call center companies would call it a spiel. No? Ano yung mga spiels na common template for all volunteers? Later on, we'll be discussing those. Also, you need to determine amongst yourselves as a group what kind of information are you going to collect and how to get informed consent. Remember that the idea of psychological first aid is to be non-intrusive. Hindi siya katulad ng psychotherapy or psychological assessment na kailangan alam ng therapist or alam ng assessing psychologist lahat ng details na may kinalaman sa issue mo. So that includes parents, names of siblings, pangalan ng mga anak, ilang taon, anong trabaho, ilang taon ka na bang ganito yung nararamdaman mo, right? With therapy, it can get very intrusive, but of course with the consent of the client. But in this case, because this is just psychological first aid, you need to draw the line kung nasaan yung intrusive at nasaan yung non-intrusive. So, what information to collect? Pwede name, age, location. Ano ba yung mga impormasyon na sa tingin nyo ay crucial para makapagbigay kayo ng tamang tulong. So I guess location is one form of information that's very important kasi syempre ililink mo sila dun sa mga tao sa locality na yun, right? But other information may not be so helpful anymore. Okay? So next, updated information on the virus, right? You always need to be updated with everything that needs to be known about the virus. Kasi pag magbibigay kayo ng psychological first aid, kadalasan, magbibigay din talaga kayo ng information. Like I said a while ago, it's to help them make informed decisions, good decisions about how they're going to address their needs. You also need to equip yourselves with websites and measures by the authorities, and available services must be available at all times. Medyo redundant, ano? Pero kasi ang point ko dito sa bullet na to is, bago kayo umupo at mag-prepare na mag-receive ng phone calls, you have to make sure that all of these things, meron ako yung portfolio ng lahat ng information. So every time a need appears na hindi ko alam kung saan pupunta, ayan, meron ng ready na ibibigay sa kanila. Okay. Later on, I'll be sharing with you some resources and then some websites, some online resources that you can share with your prospective callers. Okay. Next is information on how to contact health authorities, as well as contact details of health and mental health services must be readily available. Aside from remote psychological first aid na pinag-uusapan natin ngayon, isa sa mga sinasuggest ko sa Department of Health, which was already approved dito sa Bicol region, was we train barangay health workers to do psychological first aid. Kasi sila yung may direct contact na naman sa mga tao sa community. Pero syempre, it doesn't mean hindi na kailangan ng remote psychological first aid. Kasi may mga populations naman talaga na kailangan na they reach out to people via technology. It's just that not everybody does the same thing. So this is still very relevant. Ang point ko dito is, pag magbibigay tayo ng psychological first aid support, kailangan alam natin lahat ng contact numbers, lahat ng ways on how to contact people sa government, right? Sa agencies, even clinics, hospitals, na readily available. While as much as possible, gusto natin magbigay ng tulong sa lahat ng tao, we open our services to the entire public. Lahat ng madlang people, try to open it to everybody. Doing that may limit your linking. What do I mean when I say this? Pag inopen nyo sa lahat ng localities, then dapat alam nyo rin yung information ng lahat ng localities. So, you may want to operate within a single city. You may want to operate, let's say, if you're in Metro Manila, you may want to just stick with answering phone calls who are in Metro Manila so that you have all the information readily available for your callers. So kung taga Maynila ka, tapos may tumawag sa'yo na taga Cebu, you may not be able to really help them because you don't know any contact information in that particular city. Okay. So knowing the place, kung saan kayo, ano magiging area of operations nyo is important. Next, procedures for when and how to refer persons with severe psychological distress. Okay. Kasi pag psychological first aid, the thing is, if people are saying, gusto ko magpakamatay, if people are saying, I am very overwhelmed with anxiety that I'm feeling right now, those are just some of the signs that kailangan ng taong to ng mas malaking klaseng tulong. So knowing when it's time to refer a caller to your supervisor or to a psychologist, or knowing when to refer that person to other service providers is important. So dapat meron tayong protocols na gagawin. So it will be up to your organization kung paano nyo gagawin. What's important is you have your own policy, uniform sa lahat ng volunteers niyo. Next is an updated list of links and other information and psychoeducational materials that can be sent to the caller when ending the call. This is very helpful, lalo na pa video calls kasi you can transfer files, transfer images while in the phone call, like when we're doing Zoom sessions like now. In the website of the Department of Health, for example, ang dami nilang linagay doon na infographics, right, about COVID guidelines and tips on how to manage your mental health, how to manage your physical health. Andun lahat sa Department of Health website. So later on, I'll be sending you the link also on how you can get those materials para yun din yung ipapasa nyo sa mga taong tutulungan nila. Okay. So the support that will be offered to staff and volunteers and how to ensure their well-being when having to take many of difficult Hello, sorry, naputol yata ako. Hello? Am I heard? Okay, sige. I'll just reshare the screen, no? I hope you can tell me kung saan ako nagtapos at saan ako nawala. I was discussing guidelines in planning support. Okay, so I'll share my screen again for everyone. Sorry, I think it must be the internet connection. Sige, so if I'm not mistaken, dito no, sa information on how to contact health authorities. So you must be able to connect people to the authorities. Right. So procedures for when and how to refer persons with severe psychological distress. Tapos sabi ko din kanina, dapat meron tayo updated list of links and other information. I also mentioned a while ago that the DOH website has a lot of these information, a lot of these infographics that you can use when you need to link with your callers. And then sabi ko din kanina, hindi just because it's a PFA service, it doesn't mean that we don't create protocols for our own volunteers. Kasi yung mga volunteers natin, expect that they will also be exposed to a lot of stress. They will also be exposed to possibly traumatic experiences. Meron tayong tinatawag na vicarious traumatization. Hindi natin hinihingi, no? Pero paano kung yung tumawag ay may issue on domestic violence, may issue of child abuse? You know, these things can be difficult to take in for our volunteers. So making sure that we have protocols na gagawin after their duty is also beneficial to their own mental health. So some of these examples, pwedeng, di ba, after ng sessions ninyo, right? Pwede kayo mag-Zoom meeting, kayong lahat ng volunteers, and then you can also share your experiences. And then your supervisor can process these experiences with you. So para din, napoprocess nyo yung mga taong tumatawag sa inyo, pero meron din napoprocess ng experiences ninyo. Okay. One of the interesting things about being a helping professional, being some social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, or even being a volunteer is we help people, pero tayo din, hindi natin napapansin, pati pala tayo, exposed din. Hindi natin napapansin, stress na rin pala tayo, distress na rin pala tayo. So having ways to take care of ourselves is important. So after pinag-usapan natin yung yung setup, let's proceed to look. Pahapi ako na lang itong i-discuss, no, yung how do we usually react to stress. Most of you already know this already, pero the reason why I would like to present this with you is because you can expect that your callers or people who will be going to you may also manifest these signs. So here are just some of them. You know, in our research, we found out that one of the things that prevent people from really accessing healthcare or help seeking, that prevents them from seeking a counselor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist is not just about stigma and discrimination, but it's also about misinformation. They don't know enough about their mental well-being. Ang alam kasi ng mga tao, pag sinabing stress, it's only about emotional signs of stress. So yung anxiety, yung depression, yung anger, what they don't understand that stress can also manifest itself in other forms such as physical symptoms, It can also manifest in behavior, and it can also manifest in the way we think about different things. So stress reactions can be in these many forms, and they don't know it. That's why in our service, it's also important that we let them know that stress is not just emotional. So, papayaw ko na lang po ito discuss, no? So, some emotional responses to stress, the most common, is anxiety, sadness, and fear. But for other disasters or in other situations, pwedeng pumasok dyan yung irritability, depression, anger. Di ba yung parang ang bilis yung magalit pag nag-browse sa social media, pag nakita kayo ng mga taong pasaway sa parenting policies, parang bilis-bilis yung magalit. Lack of enjoyment. Some people tend to not pursue activities that brings them enjoyment or pleasure anymore. Right? Sense of emptiness, hopelessness, numbness, withdrawn, or disinterest. Some of these are quite extreme already, pero it's still a possibility depending on the kind of emergency or natural disaster. What you can expect among people in terms of emotional responses to stress is that it's not it's not presented in a way na isa lang. It's seldom that you get a caller na magsasabi na anxiety lang nararamdaman ko or sadness lang yung nararamdaman ko or natatakot ako. Even when I asked you a while ago kung ano yung nararamdaman mo at this moment, it's also possible na meron pa kayong iba pang nararamdaman aside from anxiety. Meron pa kayong ibang nararamdaman aside from sadness. So these emotions tend to happen simultaneously. It's very possible. In fact, it's quite common that people experience multiple emotions at the same time. So pwedeng magsabay yung anxiety and sadness. Pwedeng magsabay yung anger at fear, right? Next is the physical responses to stress. You can expect that some callers might complain about mataas yung high blood, mataas na high pang, sorry. They report about having high blood pressure. They report decreased heart rate. Yung mga tao mag-report sa inyo na I'm experiencing palpitations. Tumaas yung blood sugar ko. Akala nila walang kinalaman sa mental health yun. But if, di ba sabi natin sa biopsychosocial aspect of well-being, they're all interconnected. So some physiological or physical manifestations of stress include upset stomach, nausea, tiredness for some reason, kahit hindi naman kayo masyadong gumagalaw-galaw sa bahay, cramps. This is very common, either insomnia or hypersomnia. I myself, for example, I find it very difficult to sleep at night, right? Or I would end up sleeping at 4 in the morning already. Tapos I wake up at around 10 in the morning. So it's pretty normal, especially in an emergency situation like this. So making them aware of their own symptoms of stress can help them make decisions on how they can help themselves. So behavioral responses to stress include changes in the way people act after a stressful situation. Pag may tumatawag sa inyo, hindi nyo na ito masyadong mapapansin kasi na over the phone. But they may be able to share with you stories about how they are acting differently all of a sudden, right? So most common behavioral responses include substance use. Lalo na pag sinasabi nila na hindi naman ako pala inom, pero I find myself drinking. Pero may liquor ban, di ba? Or smoking. It doesn't always have to be smoking and alcohol. There are other substances that may be used as a way of coping, like coffee. Dati, 4 cups a day lang ako, pero because of the enhanced community quarantine, parang naging 16 cups a day ako sa maghapon. This is an example, no? Tapos, meron din tao na they would share na hindi lang kape, pwede rin milk tea, right? Or a particular type of food like ice cream. So it doesn't have to be narcotics. So other behavioral signs include overprotectiveness, lalo na sa mga families, no? I don't know if you experience this also, pero You tend to be overprotective of your family members, especially if they decide to go out, like mamimili lang sa labas ng essential items. You tend to be very afraid for them or overprotective, right? Social difficulties, especially pagdating sa social media, no, ang dami nag-aaway sa comment section. Um, while being in the community quarantine, we get to stay at home and then we be with our loved ones. For some families, it may have a different effect. No? Dahil magkakasama sila sa bahay lagi, parang yun patuloy yung nagiging trigger for potential conflict. So those are just some of the behavioral signs. And of course, yung becoming overly busy. Some people will try to do a lot of things just so they could be distracted from experiencing anxiety or fear. There's recently, may meme na lumabas sa Facebook na if you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, your side hustle started, more knowledge, you never lack time, you lack discipline. So this kind of productivity pressure, it's sometimes it's not helpful anymore. People tend to be pressured and tend to be overly busy. Tapos they don't realize that they're overly tired and then overwhelmed with what's happening. Okay, so cognitive responses to stress, this involves a certain way of thinking. Some of the most common signs include difficulty in concentrating. So, okay, some of your callers might report to you these signs. Problems in thinking clearly, difficulty making decisions. Diba? We try to help them solve their problems, and because of stress, they can't really think clearly and make decisions. Other responses include intrusion of unwanted memories. Alam niyo, pag nasa quarantine kayo, tapos wala kayong masyadong magawa, bigla na lang papasok yung memories na failed relationships, right? Yung mga grudges mo sa ibang tao, or sometimes people experience unpleasant dreams or nightmares because of the fear. Some would end up questioning spiritual beliefs, yung mga church-based natin dyan na groups. Maybe it's something that they like to address. Of course, yung having flashbacks, especially pag merong mga situations, ay merong mga memories sila na ayaw nilang balikan, na medyo masaklap, pero they can't help but recall. Okay, but what you tell them is, it's okay. The thing is, our brains and bodies naturally react to stressful situations to tell us that something is not good and we need to be alert. So our natural reactions to stress, these are all necessary for us to understand that the situation is not normal. Kaya okay lang naman kung ito yung nararamdaman kasi hindi naman talaga normal sitwasyon. Our natural reactions to stress also help us get back to a state of normalcy once the situation is over. And then it's just sometimes, our natural reactions rather become too much when the situation is too overwhelming. So lahat talaga tayo capable of coping. So sometimes things can get overwhelming and we may not be able to do it on our own anymore. Okay. Now, pagdating naman sa remote psychological first aid, it's important for us, di ba we're looking, it's important for us to assess the following needs. Ano ba ang kailangan ng caller ko? We need to find out what the practical and emotional support callers may need, right? Anong klaseng need ang kailangan i-address? Is it practical, logistical? Is it mental health? Is it physical health? Right? Next is you must be able to assess the situation the callers will find themselves in. Are their needs in the home setting? More of spiritual setting? More of work yung context ng problem? So it's up to us to find out kung anong situation ng caller natin. And very important, we must be able to assess the imagined or realistic risks that callers are experiencing. Finding out the risk involved in their situation sometimes, could set the boundary between becoming resilient about the situation or tuloy-tuloy na mapunta sa mental health condition yung nararamdaman nila. So knowing the risks in what they're experiencing is vital as EFA helpers. So kasama yung sa Paul principle. Okay? Now, so paano pagdating sa, nandun na tayo, we're offering calls already. Some of the tips that I'd like to share with you are the following. Number one is you can consider the rate of your speech. Kanina nag-message sa akin yung tech support natin. Tapos, mabilis ko daw mag-discuss. So, I'm sorry about that. So, yun. Ito yung first tip that I'd like to share with you. Medyo marami kasing content. Kung tutuusin, TFA can be one entire subject. No? Consider this as a bit of a crash course. So, consider the rate of your speech. The best thing you can do is you can match your pace with your caller. Kung mabagal magsalita yung caller mo, i-pace mo yung rate of speech mo rin. Kung mabagal ka rin. Kung mabilis siya, then mabilis ka rin. Some people are saying dapat mabagal lang lagi. Pero kasi alam nyo, may mga caller na likas sa kanila yung mabilis sila magsalita. Therefore, minsan mabilis din sila mag-process ng mga bagay. So, kung masyado kang mabagal naman magsalita, baka mairita sila dahil masyadong bumabagal yung conversation. So, knowing how fast or how slow you will be talking can help a lot. So, next is communicate with empathy and warmth through a modulating voice that shows care. So, ang mga boses natin, syempre wala na tayong gagawa sa boses natin Ganun na talaga yung boses natin. But we can always modulate our voices in a bit to be able to send the right kind of message. For example, if you speak really high, like this, masyado mataas yung boses ko, ganun. Tapos mabilis pa ako magsalita, it sends a different message. Siguro sa mga activities na kailangan energize ng mga tao, you'd find that very effective. Pero kung may tatawag sa inyo na nakaka-experience ng anxiety, right, easily startled, kung ganun yung level ng pitch ng boses mo, it triggers too much, it activates too much. So baka ma-overwhelm din siya. So having the right kind of pitch is also important. If anxious yung kausap nyo, you can lower the pitch of your voice like this. Pwedeng mababa, mahinahon, and mabagal. So you can explore your voice and see what particular pitch and what particular speed is more helpful for your callers. Okay. Next is acknowledge the caller's feelings and understanding of events and allow for ventilation of frustration. Kadalasan yung mga tumatawag sa atin, nagagalit, naiirita, hindi naman sa atin. Naiirita at nagagalit sila sa sitwasyon. So having the right kind of mindset will also keep us protected no, from the frustration and then the anger that we are expressing. So if talking for a very worried caller, it is important to create a sense of calm and safety by using a calm tone of voice. So next, if visual contact, like if you're using Zoom or any other video calling platform, you can use simple visuals. Right now, I'm sharing my PowerPoint slides, no? Pero pwede kayong yung mga pictures na meron kayo, mga infographics na nakukuha sa mga credible sources. You can use that. You can share it with your callers. During the call, you can use open questions. This is something that you're very much familiar already, I assume, no? So yung mga what questions, where questions, who, when. Just make sure that you don't really ask the question why. Alam niyo na kung bakit di tayo nagtatanong ng bakit, no? Kasi when we ask why, it's like we are imposing blame on that person. So ask one question at a time and avoid interpreting what the caller is saying. Meron kasing mga tao, minsan di ba mahilig sila mag-interpret kung anong sinasabi ng iba. In our case, the best thing to do is to just really take what they are saying as is. Wala tayong dinadagdagan, wala rin tayo dinabawasan. So be aware that it's normal to react with anger, frustration, or confusion when experiencing adversity. This is very important that we remind our callers na normal lang po ang iyong nararamdaman sa ngayon. Okay. So remember, the focus of psychological first aid helpers kayo. your focus should be on enhancing the sense of control, supporting good personal choices, and positive coping of the caller, as well as encouraging seeking support from the caller's social network. So yun po talaga yung role natin as PFA helpers. Okay? To make them achieve that sense of control once again, especially when things become very overwhelming. You also need to take note that callers may have different needs. Yung iba, mental health needs, yung iba practical needs, pero may mga tao din na sabay-sabay na may mental health need na, may practical need pa, may logistical need pa. So it's we have to be aware of those kinds of callers. Okay. Okay, so tapos na tayo dun sa first, no? Let's go to listen. Ordinarily, pag PFA, we make use of active listening, no? And active listening can be summarized into these letters or abbreviation. So best with another E, and ears, best ears. So ordinarily, sa best ears, be for body language, making sure that you are properly seated, tapos you're slightly leaning towards the person you're talking with, establishing eye contact, practicing enough space between you, a comfortable space between you and your client, and then sticking to the time, and you can make use of touch. And then that's for the physiological side of it. Tapos pagdating naman sa non-verbal. Pagdating naman sa verbal, sa ears, we encourage, we ask questions, we reflect. So reflecting means basically parang inuulit lang natin kung ano sinasabi ng kausap natin para parang ibabato lang, sort of like mirroring. But I'm also putting here paraphrasing, no? Better if kung anong bigay sa atin, we use our own words to reflect back what they're saying nang walang dinadagdagan tsaka walang pinabawasan. This is very important because you want them to have this feeling that yes, this person is talking to me. Yes, this person does understand what I'm going through. And kasama sa reflect yung pag-affirm na yes, mahirap na yung nararamdaman mo, totoo, it's challenging, it can get quite difficult. So those are affirmations. And then summarize. So lalo na pag marami kang pinag-usapan, you should be able to summarize everything. But in a remote PFA situation, the thing is, hindi talaga tayo makakapag. Hindi natin magagawa lahat. Like the body language, lalo na kung phone call, walang eye contact. Siyempre, sobrang dami ng space, right? We can actually make use of what's left, like setting the right time, giving encouragement, asking questions, reflecting, and then summarizing. Okay, so when giving PFA, here are some key psychosocial phrases conveying interest and empathy. Paano natin ipapadama sa kausap natin na yes, we care, we empathize. So these are just some examples. Naiintindihan ko ang iyong mga concern. Marami talagang mga tao ang marami ang isip ng sitwasyon. Then also say, natural lang na makaramdam ng lungkot, galit o pag-aalala. Naiintindihan ko ang sinasabi mo na, and paraphrase what the caller is saying. Then, baka pwede po natin pag-usapan ang mga posibleng solusyon. So, you're already exploring possible solutions. And then, you assure them, ang magagawa ko po ay, so you can tell them on your end, what can I do? And then, another example is, concerned po ako sa iyong kalagayan. Kung okay lang sa'yo, mayroong tao na mas makakatulong sa iyo. So this is something that we can use when it's time to refer that caller to a professional, a specialist, or to your supervisor. So these are just some of the examples. As you can see, no, walang advice giving, walang directive, walang sinasabi, eto gawin mo, eto sabihin mo. It's more about facilitating the conversation. And it's really more of the client speaking than you. Okay, so pagdating sa listen, no, here it's important for us to open the conversation. So this is just a common template, but of course in your organization you can come up with your own. So introduce yourself to the person calling by saying your name, organization, and position. So when you pick up the phone, you can say, hi, my name is Jim from CPPS. I'm working as a hotline volunteer. How may I help you? So yun, you ask how you may help. And if suitable, also ask for the name of the caller. May mga tumatawag na prefer not to say their names, and we must be able to respect that kung ayaw nilang mag-disclose kung sino sila. Okay. There are other ways of asking for the name, like instead of saying, what's your name? You can also say, how would you like me to address you? Right? How would you like me to call you? You can agree on the duration of the call depending upon what the caller is asking about. Another unique thing about providing remote psychological first aid is you are confined to a specific time slot. Lalo na kung maraming callers, hindi natin talaga magagawa na panliusap, no? Kasi we have other clients to tend to. So agreeing on the duration of the call is important, and we must be able to say the right words to convey that to the caller without offending them. Kasi may mga caller, marami talaga silang gusto sabihin, pero kailangan ma-shorten yung conversation. You know, if they really need to talk, to vent out, we can refer them actually. So here are just some examples. There seems to be a lot of on your mind. Parang ang daming maraming nasa isip mo yun. On this call, we can talk for about 15 minutes and then decide how to move on. You can also say, when we have talked for about 10 minutes, we can take stock and decide how to best proceed. So, pwede mo sabihin na pagkatapos ng 10 minuto, pwede mo break muna tayo, no? Tapos mag-decision tayo kung paano tayo magpapatuloy. And then, you can ask, what are the most important issues I can help you with? Minsan, maraming issues na pinapresent ng caller natin, mas maganda kung may prioritize natin kung ano yung mas pinakakailangan nila. Okay? So, kung ang pinaka-overwhelming issue is the anxiety, then we focus on elevating that anxiety. We can also say, I can certainly help you with this information. Now, is there anything else I can do for you? So yung pag medyo na-address na natin yung issue niya. Okay, so you also need to listen for emotional and practical needs. We have to be sensitive enough to get from their speech, kung ano yung context na sinasabi nila, to understand kung ano yung mga needs na meron sa kanila. So should the caller be worried, explore what the person is particularly worried about and what their specific concerns are. So some of the things you can ask are, pwede mo ba ikwento sa akin kung ano ang bumabagabag sa'yo? Difficult word, no? Pwede mo rin palitan ng anong nagpapaalala sa'yo. Ano kaya ang mga dahilan ng iyong pag-aalala? Yun. We don't ask questions like, bakit ka nag-aalala? Bakit ka nagagalit? Diba? We don't ask those questions. So there are more effective ways on how you can ask that particular question. So next is, in cases of extreme stress, worry, fear, or loss of control, reassure and normalize these reactions by explaining that such feelings are normal during this situation and any other crisis. Gusto ko sana magpa-activity na while I'm giving these examples, meron din kayong may co-contribute na sa team anong best to do this, but I guess we're running out of time. So I'll just mention, no? Ang mga sinasabi niyo sa akin ay karaniwan sa mga panito. Maari ang marami ang nag-aalala na mahawaan o kaya makahawa sa mga mahal sa buhay. Meron din mga nag-aalala tungkol sa kanilang buhayan. So that's one example. Another one is, nakakabahala na ang sitwasyong ito dahil marami pa tayo hindi alam tungkol sa virus. Normal lang naman tayo ay mag-react ng ganito at mag-alala. So assuring them that what we are experiencing is normal. Next. So another option that you can do now is to mention how having updated and current information is helpful. So you can tell them, sa panahon ito, marami ang nag-aalala, ngunit makakatulong sa atin ang pagkalap ng tamang impormasyon na makakagabay sa ating mga desisyon. Pwede po tayo kumuha ng impormasyon sa mga lehitimo at mapagkakatiwala ang mga source. Okay. Next, we can then ask the caller what what do they usually do to cope with difficult situations and feel better? Minsan kasi, hindi nila alam na nag-cope na pala sila hanggang sa may magtanong sa kanila. If we ask that question, they can be more aware of what they're actually doing. Baka hindi sila aware na coping na pala ginagawa nila. No? So have them name a few and discuss if they can be useful in the actual situation. So you can say, naiintindihan ko na mahirap ang iyong sitwasyon sa ngayon. Pag-usapan natin kung ano ba ang mga pwede nating gawin para maiwasan ang iyong mga nararamdaman. So, sila na rin, if you notice, no, sila na rin mismo yung nagbibigay ng sagot sa kanilang mga tanong and we're only facilitating. And it's really, our role is help them make the decision kung ano yung helpful and then ano yung hindi helpful. You ask the caller, you ask what the caller will choose to do and assist the caller to find out more and other things they can do or suggest. They write a list for inspiration. Good. So pwede nyo habang during a phone call, you can ask them, pwede ka bang kumuha ng isang papel at ballpen? Pwede mong ilista ano ba yung mga kadalasan mong ginagawa para mag-cope. Tapos pwede mong sabihin sa kanila, ngayon, lagyan mo ng check yung mga nakikita mo na pwedeng mas nakakatulong at lagyan ng X yung mga hindi masyado nakakatulong. Then you can let them, you can facilitate in refining the list and making sure they have a final list of what's the most helpful way of coping. Okay, so may mga pagkakataon din talaga na may callers tayo na they are already anxious, right? Hindi sila mapapakali, sorry. So should a caller need help with calming techniques? So you can suggest breathing and relaxation exercises for reducing worry and for calming. So it can also be helpful to ask the person to place their feet solidly on the floor, right, or ground, and sense the support from the floor or the ground. If sitting on a chair, like what I'm doing, you can ask them to have their feet flat on the floor. Testing, iti-tense nila yung legs nila ng konti by stemming the feet against the floor, pero not really deliberately trying to put pressure. And then this can be very useful in making them feel calm. There are a lot of calming techniques. I encourage you to explore them, although I will not be mentioning all of them in this particular webinar. But what I would like to focus on is breathing. Madali kasi sabihin sa mga tao na huminga ka ng malalim. That's a good way of coping with anxiety. But you know, there are two ways of breathing. The difficult part about breathing is one way of breathing actually worsens the anxiety. And then one type of breathing helps. Yeah. So teaching people the best way to breathe is important. So yung chest breathe, dalawa kasi yan yung chest breathing and then yung abdominal breathing. Chest breathing is what you observe with people whenever they are hyperventilating. They raise their shoulders like that. Tapos yung focus ng air when they breathe ay dito sa taas lang, sa chest. We actually encourage them to not breathe that way because it actually aggravates the situation when they breathe through the chest. So what we are suggesting they do is use abdominal breathing. The difference is para kang huminga tapos yung hangin ang pasok sa tiyan. Although hindi naman talaga sa lungs talaga siya, pero you have the sensation that the air is going to your stomach, your belly, rather than on the chest. Let's try, no? I can't see you, but I hope you're trying. So you can inhale slowly and deeply through your nose. Then keep your shoulders relaxed and your abdomen should expand. Notice that when you breathe through the abdomen, your shoulders are not raising. Hindi gumagano. When you breathe through your abdomen, it's more of your belly expanding rather than your shoulders raising. Exhale slowly through your mouth as you blow air out. Purse your lips slightly, but keep your jaw relaxed. You may hear a soft oozing or sound as you exhale. So this is something that can help you out with the breathing. So notice it's quite slow lang, no? So inhale, abdominal, no? And exhale. You can opt not, you can use a GIF like this, a GIF, to visually aid your callers to breathe, or you may just count with them, like inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 4. So those are the things that you can do. So next, what else can you do? Well, if relevant, you can ask callers what they do to keep physically and mentally safe if quarantined or self-isolated. So if needed, you can provide further information or on hygiene and other measures. Kasi alam nyo, people who have mental health difficulties, medyo correlated siya sa personal hygiene. So you may want to provide them with that kind of information as well. Actually, to be honest, gusto ko na magpagupit. We can't do so, no, because of the quarantine. So, lalo na pag nasa bahay ka lang, wala ka naman ibang kausap. Minsan nakakatamad maligo, something like that. So, providing them with information may help. So, should a caller ask what to do? This is something interesting, no? The helper can say, itong pwede niyo sabihin, hindi ko po alam kung paano ko sasagutin ang tanong para sa iyo. Ano ba ang naisip mo kapag kailangan ko magdesisyon? This is interesting kasi a caller is asking you what they can do, but they don't answer anything particular. Baka isipin, sir, di ba kaya nga tayo tinatawagan kasi naghahanap ng information sa atin, naghahanap ng advice sa atin. But you know, that's the thing. We don't really give advice with psychological first aid. Kadalasan, yung mga kasagutan sa tanong nila, nasa sa kanila lang naman din. It's just up to us to help them find those answers on their own. Another thing to consider with this kind of question, paano kung hindi natin alam yung buong konteksto ng sitwasyon ng caller natin? We don't know the entire situation. So, if we give an advice as to what they should do, how sure are we that they would be able to follow that advice? So those are just some of the things that you can consider. That's why we're saying we don't know how to answer that directly, but we can help you figure it out and we can actually work on it together. Okay. Pero naglagay ako dito, no? Advice to isolated quarantine person. This is a different form of advice, no? Kasi this is in line with the quarantine policies. Kasi unique yung situation natin, di ba? With ordinary or regular PFA, usually hindi natin to sasabihin. Pero dahil nga naka-quarantine tayo, we always need to advise them na stay socially close even when maintaining physical distance. Sabi ng World Health Organization, we don't call it social distancing anymore. It should be physical distance. Kasi the idea is, socially close ka pa rin. You keep people you love near you. You maintain close connections with friends and family, but at the same time, you maintain physical distance. So that's the idea there. And you establish a daily routine. And for example, kailan matutulog, kailan gising, ano oras kakain. You may assist your caller in coming up with their own schedules, coming up with activities that are helpful o yung mga kapaki-pakinabang na mga gawain. You can help them set goals and help them keep active. Pero take note sila gagawa nito, sila mag-accomplish nito. We're just facilitating. And of course, plan time alone and time together if living with others. Kasi minsan nagiging toxic din pag lagi na lang kayo together. Minsan kailangan din natin ng alone time. So next, we should also look for or inject humor into the situation if appropriate. We're calling this advice kasi ito yung mga binibigay sa atin ng ating authorities like the World Health Organization, Psychological Association of the Philippines, the Department of Health, yun. Maintain hope. Although sinasabi natin na huwag mong sabihan yung caller mo na dapat positive ka lang. But when we say maintain hope, it's making them feel that we can always have a positive outlook of of what's happening. Pero hindi natin pipilitin na dapat hopeful ka, dapat positive ka lang. Paano kung hindi nga talaga sila positive at this point, di ba? And then, use stress management techniques. So yung breathing exercise natin kanina, that's one. But you can also, I suggest, you can look up bioenergetic exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, and yung mga mindfulness exercises. Those are some of the things that you can explore. You can, as a group, pwede nyo i-compile yung mga yon para ibigay sa mga volunteers. Okay? And of course, accept feelings as they are. Pag galit, galit. Pag nalulungkot, nalulungkot. We do not have the intention of deliberately trying to make them feel happy. So last is link. When we say link, we have to take note that TFA is not just about keeping people calm. There is a need for help for the helper to refer to specialized services if the caller needs practical assistance, for example, food or shelter, or for medical professional mental health support. So using link, ito habang kausap natin yung caller, if relevant, we can ask what they know and believe about what they know about the virus and where and how they get updated information. So pwede natin sabihin na mukhang marami kang nabalitaan tungkol sa virus, social media, pwede mo pang ikwento sa akin kung saan mo nakuha ang informasyon na yon. Nabibisita mo rin ba ang mga official websites? Just to check if they have access to credible information. And then you can ask the caller, you can ask how the caller stays in touch with social networks. Like, paano ka nakikipag-usap sa mga kapamilya mo, sa mga friends mo, yun. Then you can ask also if there are any practical problems or challenges, like accessing to healthcare, accessing government support, accessing barangay support. Now, when things get difficult, right, it's very important that we refer. Although, pag sinabi kasi natin na refer, it's not always referring to a person. Pwede rin siyang referring to information. So if needed, you can refer people to other services. You can say, para sa informasyon tungkol sa kalusugan o kaya mga serbisyo, pwede mong tawagan o tingnan ang online ang mga ito. So, ibibigay sa kanya. So, ensure informed consent from the caller and make the referral. So, this is very important, in psychological first. If you don't just talk to people, right, and give the service, we must make sure that they give us the consent to give them these kinds of services. So, dahil calling lang siya, dapat through the conversation, napapaliwanag natin sa caller natin. Ito ang psychological first aid. Ito yung mga magagawa namin para sa iyo. Gusto namin i-assure na ang yung identity, personal information ay hindi makakalabas sa pag-uusap na ito. So, if your organization decides to record conversations for monitoring and evaluation, kailangan nyo rin sabihin sa caller na this call may be recorded. It's similar to when you call Smart or Globe, diba? Service centers, and then you get the prompt that this call may be recorded for evaluation purposes. So you need to inform them about that. And when you get their consent, that's the time you Okay, so refer the caller to a specialist. Okay, this is very important na alam natin kung kailan natin i-refer yung kausap natin sa isang specialista. So here are some of the indicators para i-refer sa psychologist or psychiatrist ang isang caller. Una, when the caller has not been able to sleep for the last week and is confused and disoriented. Refer if the client is so distressed that they are unable to function normally and care for themselves or their children by, for example, not eating or keeping clean. You refer when the client or the caller loses control over their behavior and behaves in an unpredictable or destructive manner. You refer when the caller threatens harm to themselves or others. You also refer when the caller starts excessive and out of the ordinary use of drugs or alcohol. You refer when the callers are living with a psychological disorder. Diba? Pag may pre-existing conditions, refer. Or we're taking medication prior to the situation of distress. You also need to take mental health support. You also refer when callers present chronic health conditions and need more support. You refer also when they present symptoms of severe mental health conditions. It's also important that you familiarize yourself with symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder. Although I'm not saying dapat sa ulo niyo nakalagay sa Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, no? But familiarize yourself with common manifestations of certain mental health conditions. And kasi kayo yung volunteer, di ba? And then you refer if someone is experiencing violence or is being sexually abused in any way. Always refer. Okay? Now, like I said a while ago, pagdating sa setup natin sa organization, dapat may supervisor. And it's very important to have a supervisor so you can get that higher level of support. Lalo na pag sa tingin natin, hindi na tayo yung tamang tao na makatulog sa kausap natin. The supervisor is always a good lifeline. So a supervisor can take over calls where referrals are needed. So pwede mong, pag magta-transition kayo to a supervisor, pwede mong sabihin sa caller mo, para lubos po namin kayo matulungan, ibibigay ko po ang telepono sa aming supervisor. Siya po ay mas may kakayahan na makatulong sa inyo. Maraming salamat po sa iyong pag-usap. Nandito po ang aming supervisor. Siya po si. So this is just one of the examples as a spiel that you can use when referring to your supervisor. So next, ending the conversation. Naalala niyo yung skills, di ba, sa active listening, summarize. So you need to summarize the conversation by highlighting key issues, discussed, and action points. You can tell your caller na. So sa ngayon, at this point po, gusto ko lang pong i-summarize kung ano yung nangyari. So tumawag po kayo sa amin dahil sabi nyo ay nakaranas kayo ng pag-aalala or meron kayong takot na nararamdaman. At ito po yung mga pinag-usapan natin. Ito yung mga solusyon na naisip niyo at gusto niyo gawin. So you can summarize all of this accomplished for that particular call. And you can agree if a follow-up conversation is needed. Pwede nyo naman i-recommend sa caller na gusto nyo po ba na magkaroon ng follow-up ulit, tumawag ulit, or kami po yung tatawag sa inyo to follow up kung naging okay kayo. So pag magsabi yung caller na yes, please, pwede nyo kong i-check ulit. So you have to agree on a specific time or a suitable time. But you also have to inform them kasi may mga organization na ako yung nag-process sa'yo, pero pag follow-up, pwede hindi na ako yung process. So you must inform your caller na baka po sa susunod, pag nag-follow-up na, baka hindi na po ako yung kumausap sa inyo. So dapat alam nyo. And you always end the call by thanking your caller for the conversation. Okay, so here are some do's and don'ts pagdating sa remote PFA. No? So do listen more than you speak to identify concerns. Listen more, talk less. You ask gently probing questions. Remember not to be intrusive, right? When asking questions, you can ask open questions like what, where, how, when, where, what. Acknowledge feelings and understanding of events and normalize situations and reactions. You tell them na normal lang po nararamdaman ninyo dahil situation abnormal din. Okay. Take note that you don't pressure others to speak if they do not want to speak. If may tumawag at tapos they give you their details naman, pero magkakaroon ng parts sa call dead air, walang sasalita, you must be able to be patient and give them enough time to really speak up. You know, that's also the case with call centers. Na pag walang nagsasalita, we allot a certain period of time for them to speak. So kung wala talaga, you can end the phone call. For organizations, pwedeng part ng guidelines mo na pag hindi na nagsalita yung caller, you can use a spiel na I'm sorry, we are not getting any response from you for the last minute. We are going to hang up now. Thank you for calling. But pwede nyo idagdag na after kayo mag-hang up, kayo yung tumawag. So you can really check if they're okay. Kasi malay nyo kung ano nangyari, di ba? So pag tumawag, tapos they pick up, then you know they're okay because they're able to pick up. Okay? You don't ask why, this or that. And of course, we avoid becoming judgmental. time. So we just take what they're saying as is. We recognize internal resources and capacity to cope, right? The mentality is, as a helper, the mentality is, lahat ng pwedeng gawin ng isang tao para makarecover at para mag-cope ay nasa sa kanya din. It's just up to us to facilitate and empower them to find those solutions. You can provide information about COVID-19. Be honest of what you don't know. Baka kasi maput tayo sa isang situation na may tatanong sa atin tapos ma-pressure tayo na dapat meron tayong sasabihin. But you know, you will never go wrong in just becoming honest and saying, sorry po, hindi ko po alam kung information na yan. Pero kung gusto niyo po talagang malaman, pwede po tanongin yung supervisor ko para po mabigyan kayo ng tamang information. It's better to say we don't know rather than give them the wrong information. Okay, this is a new virus that we are all learning about. Be patient and be calm and make sure that your voice also sends the same message. And you allow process and ventilation of emotions. So we really just let them vent. Okay, let's avoid using technical terminologies, yung mga psychological jargon natin. We also need to take note that many of our callers pwede hindi naman katulad sa pag-usap natin ngayon na may English or may Tagalog, baka mas Tagalog sila. Also need to take that into consideration. We also need to let's avoid talking about ourselves or our personal issues and troubles. Baka kasi di ba tumawag sa atin kasi kailangan ng support tapos nakiyak na rin tayo, di ba? Umiyak na rin tayo kapag usap sila. So, although some professionals are saying, okay lang kung maiyak ka din sa kwento nila, that's okay, tao pa rin naman, di ba? Pero we should refrain from, dahil nga na-touch tayo, naiyak tayo, nagkwento na rin tayo, oo, ako nga ganito rin eh. So, nag-share na rin tayo ng kwento natin. So we should be able to avoid that. Okay? Next, listen for individuals' options, no, and help them make the choices. They will be the ones to provide options and they make the choice. We must be able to ensure confidentiality unless issues mentioned affect the safety of the individual or others. Kaya nga din kailangan natin ng supervisor kasi hindi lahat ng pagkakataon smooth sailing yung operations natin when we do remote PFA. Paano kung may threat to safety like may suicidal o kaya in the middle of sexual abuse or physical abuse, right? Dapat malinaw sa atin na there is actually some situations, there are some conditions where breach of confidentiality is allowed, particularly pag yung physical safety at life or death situation ang nakasalalay dito. So, halimbawa, in the middle of abuse, pwede na tayong tumawag ng police, right? In the middle of the conversation, bigla siya nagsasabi na gusto-gusto niya ng pakamatay. Ngayon na, these are the kinds of situations, emergency situations where pwede na tayong tumawag ng ibang professionals like sending someone from the hospital to check on them. And of course, we ensure that we do no harm. This particular principle is always upheld. Don'ts naman, we should avoid giving false promises or false assurances. Medyo mahirap kasi magsabi sa callers natin, everything is gonna be okay kasi hindi naman talaga okay ang mga nangyayari sa paligid natin. So let's refrain from giving false promises. Kaya nga di ba yung naalala nyo kanina sa discussion natin, we can just say, what I can do for you is. So something concrete instead of giving them assurances na very tall, right? Let's avoid sharing someone else's story or experiences. Para, oo nga, yung caller ko kanina, ganyan din yung problema sa'yo. Nagkwenta na tayo ng experiences ng client natin kanina, di ba? And we should avoid exploiting the trust and confidentiality shared. Sagrado rin po tiwala sa atin ng ating mga callers, especially yung confidentiality. When they open up to you and share their stories and information, it is side by side with the trust. It's like bestowing upon you their security. So you know that's a very big thing. Okay, so here are some sources of information. Don't worry, I will share this with you. I guess you can ask the clinic, you can ask Childfam kung paano makuha yung slides ko. But here are some information links that you can use for your practice, for your own responses. So yung Facebook page ng Psychological Association of the Philippines is very helpful. Meron po dyan na marami silang infographics on how you can better take care of yourself, self-care. And the PAP actually released a list, although we're not endorsing it now, pero we released a list of mental health clinics that offer free psychological support or even telepsychology services. Okay? Yung Facebook page natin, Facebook page ng Department of Health, you can also direct them to that Facebook page kasi madalas sa atin Facebook yung ginagamit. Or yung website ng DOH na andun lahat ng infographics na pwede nyo gamitin. The website of the World Health Organization is also helpful. And then this one, the second from the last link, it's the World Health Organization Mental Health Considerations during COVID-19 outbreak. This is very useful set of infographics that you can use for your PFA. Very particular siya sa PFA crisis. And then the last link is the Interagency Special Committee on a briefing note on addressing mental health and psychosocial aspects of COVID-19. It's a very comprehensive collection of resources that you can use to inform the public about mental health, especially in this time. And of course, syempre, you can also check out our Facebook page, the Childfam-Possibilities. Okay, so at this point, I'm ready to receive your questions. Oh, sorry, nakamute pala ako kanina. Hello, Jason.
Yes. Hi, Sir Ray. Nice meeting you again. So, ayun guys, the topic for this afternoon is very relevant. Actually, very relevant nowadays. Yung mga shinare na knowledge ni